Black Beauty, in the wind and the rain. Black Beauty, knew the meaning of pain. When it came to his duty, he knew what it should be. Black Beauty had a right to be free. The night was dark, there was no moon. The doctor was required soon. So through the wind and all the rain, he ran to the doctors and back again. Throughout his life it was very sad. He had several masters and some were bad. Then came a man who finally took pity and put him to work in London City. Black Beauty, in the wind and the rain. Of pain. When it came to his duty, he knew what it should be. Black Beauty had a right to be free. To be free.
The first place that I can well remember was a large, pleasant meadow with a pond of clear water in it. Some shady trees leaned over it, and rushes and water lilies grew at the deep end. While I was young, I lived upon my mother's milk, as I could not eat grass. In the daytime, I ran by her side, and at night, I lay down close by her. When it was hot, we used to stand by the pond in the shade of the trees, and when it was cold, we had a warm shed near the grove. As soon as I was old enough to eat grass, my mother used to go out to work in the daytime and come back in the evening. There were 6 young colts in the meadow beside me. They were older than I was. Some were nearly as large as grown-up horses. I used to run with them and had great fun. But sometimes they would play roughly and bite and kick. One day, when there was a good deal of kicking, my mother whinnied to me to come to her, and then she said, "I wish you to pay attention to what I am going to say to you. The colts who live here are very good colts, but they have not learned manners. You have been well bred and well born. Your father has a great name in these parts, and your grandfather won the cup 2 years at the Newmarket races. Your grandmother had the sweetest temper of any horse I knew, and I think you have never seen me kick or bite. I hope you will grow up gentle and good and never learn bad ways. Do your work with a good will, lift your feet up well when you trot, and never bite or kick, even in play." I have never forgotten my mother's advice. I knew she was a wise old horse, and our master thought a great deal of her. Her name was Duchess, but he called her Pet. As time went on, I began to grow handsome, although it may be immodest of me to say so. My coat grew fine and soft and was bright black. I had 1 white foot and a white star on my forehead. When I was 4 years old, it was time for my breaking in. Everyone may not know what breaking in is, so I will describe it. It means to teach a horse to wear a saddle and bridle and to carry on his back a man, woman, or child, to go just the way they wish and to go quietly. I had long been used to a halter and to be led about in the fields and lanes quietly, but now I was to have a bit and bridle. Those who have never had a bit in their mouths cannot think how bad it feels at first to have a great piece of cold, hard steel pushed into one's mouth, between one's teeth and over one's tongue. And yet I knew my mother always wore one when she went out, and all the horses did when grown up. So with my master's kind words and gentle ways, I learned to wear my bit and bridle. Next came the saddle, but that was not half so bad. My master put it on my back very gently, and then made the girths fast under my body, patting and talking to me all the time. Then he gave me a few oats and led me about. He did this every day until I began to look for the oats and the saddle. Finally, one morning my master got on my back and rode me around the meadow on the soft grass. It certainly did feel queer, but I must say I felt rather proud to carry my master, and as he continued to ride me a little every day, I soon became accustomed to it. The next unpleasant business was putting on the iron shoes. My master went with me to the smith's forge to see that I was not hurt or frightened. The blacksmith took my feet in his hand, one after the other, and cut away some of the hoof. It did not pain me, so I stood still on 3 legs until he had done them all. Then he took a piece of iron the shape of my foot and clapped it on, and drove some nails through the shoe quite into my hoof, so that the shoe was firmly on. My feet felt very stiff and heavy, but in time I got used to it. A horse never knows who may buy him. There are good and thoughtful men like my first master, but there are also foolish, ignorant, and thoughtless men. It's all a chance. Thus it was that I was most fortunate in my second master, Squire Gordon of Birtwick. The first time he rode me, I found him to be gentle and thoughtful for his horse. After the ride was over, his wife asked him how he liked me. "A pleasanter creature I never wished to mount. What shall we call him?" After discarding several names such as Ebony and Blackbird, the squire's wife said, "He is really quite a beauty, and he has such a sweet, good-tempered face, and such a fine, intelligent eye. What do you say to calling him Black Beauty?" It was a good name, and I determined to live up to it. My life at Squire Gordon's was very pleasant, especially since the coachman, John Manley, was such a wonderful man with horses. He seemed very proud of me. He used to make my mane and tail almost as smooth as a lady's hair, and he would talk to me a great deal. Of course, I did not understand all he said, but I learned more and more to know what he meant and what he wanted me to do. I grew very fond of him. He was so gentle and kind. He seemed to know just how a horse feels, and when he cleaned me, he knew the tender places and the ticklish places. When he brushed my head, he went as carefully over my eyes as if they were his own. Squire Gordon kept many horses, but my best friend was my neighbor in the next stall, Merrylegs. He was a little fat gray pony with a thick mane and tail and a very pretty head with a pert little nose. One afternoon, the squire's daughters, Miss Jessie and Miss Flora, invited some boys and girls from the village to come and play with them, and Merrylegs was chosen to give the children rides around the orchard. After a long time, John Manley brought Merrylegs back to the stable, put on his halter, and said, "There, you rogue, mind how you behave yourself, or we shall get into trouble." I asked Merrylegs what the trouble was. "Oh, I have been giving those children a lesson. They were beating me with sticks, so I just pitched them off backwards." "You threw Miss Jessie or Miss Flora?" "Of course not. I'm as careful of our young ladies as the master would be. It was the boys from the village. Boys, you see, think a horse or a pony is like a steam engine or a machine of some kind. They never think a pony can have any feelings or get tired. So when they began beating me with those big sticks, I decided to teach them a lesson, and I think I did." My other good friend at Squire Gordon's was a horse named Ginger. Unlike my case, Ginger had had a hard life with never a kind or thoughtful master until she had come to the Squire's. As a result, she had the habit of biting and snapping and had a very bad disposition. After a while, under the loving care of John Manley, she seemed to get much better and to feel much happier. "It's the Manley medicine," John said. "It's made of patience and gentleness, firmness and petting, 1 pound of each to be mixed up with a pint of common sense and given to the horse every day." So our days at Squire Gordon's were happy ones. But the best days of all were Sundays in the summertime when we had our liberty. We would be turned out into the home paddock or the old orchard. The grass was cool and soft to our feet, and the air was so sweet. But best of all was the freedom to do whatever we liked, to gallop or lie down, to roll over on our backs, or to nibble the sweet grass. Sometimes we would just stand together under the shade of the large chestnut tree and talk. So the good times went at Squire Gordon's, but the bad times were to come. It all started when John Manley had to go away on a trip. In his place to take care of us, he left a mere lad, little Joe Green. Joe was small, quick, willing, and kind-hearted, but he lacked the experience with horses of my good friend John Manley, and it cost me sorely. It all began one night, shortly after John had left. I had eaten my hay and was lying down in my straw, fast asleep, when I was suddenly roused by the stable bell ringing very loud. Then I heard the squire's voice saying, "Wake up, Beauty! You must run well now if you ever did. My wife is very ill. You must take me as fast as you can to fetch Dr. White." He was on my back in a minute, and we were off. There was before us a long piece of level road by the riverside, and my master said to me, "Now, Beauty, do your best." And do I did. I needed no whip nor spur, and for 2 miles I galloped as fast as I could lay my feet to the ground. I don't believe that my old grandfather, who won the race at Newmarket, could have gone faster. We came through a village, then through a dark wood, then uphill, then downhill, till after an 8-mile run we came to the town, through the streets and into the marketplace. It was all quite still except the clatter of my feet on the stones. Everybody was asleep. The church clock struck 3 as we drew up at Dr. White's door. Squire Gordon roused the doctor and said, "My wife is very ill, Doctor. You must go to her at once, or I'm afraid she may die." But the doctor replied, "The worst of it is that my horse had been out all day and is quite done up. What is to be done? Can I have your horse?" Then the squire said, "Black Beauty has come at a gallop all the way, and I hope to rest him here, but you may take him. He will go till he drops." I will not tell about our way back. It was a very bad time, but I did my best, and soon had the doctor at Squire Gordon's house. Little Joe Green led me to the stable. My legs shook under me, and I could only stand and pant. I had not a dry hair on my body. The water ran down my legs, and I steamed all over. Little Joe didn't know what to do to help me, and so he did all the wrong things. He did not put my warm cloth on me. Then he gave me a pail full of cold water to drink, and some hay and some corn, and thinking he had done right, he went away. Soon I began to shake and tremble and turn deadly cold. My legs ached, my chest ached, and I felt sore all over. Oh, how I wished for my warm, thick cloth as I stood and trembled. I lay down in my straw and tried to go to sleep, but all I could do was moan, for I was in great pain. I don't remember much about the next few days, for I was very ill. The next thing I do remember was when the squire and John Manley, back from his trip, came to visit me. "My poor Beauty," Squire Gordon said. "My good horse, you saved your mistress's life, but you almost lost your own." "Yes," said John Manley. "Joe Green is a stupid boy. No cloth put on, water too cold." "But he meant no harm," the squire said. "It's only ignorance." "Only ignorance," said John. "Only ignorance. It's the worst thing in the world next to wickedness. And which does the most mischief, heaven only knows. If people can say, 'Oh, I did not know,' or 'I did not mean any harm,' they think that makes everything right, but it surely doesn't, as poor Beauty's plight plainly shows." There seems to come a time in the life of a horse, and perhaps that of a man too, when for some little reason or no reason at all, the tide seems to turn against him. So it seemed to me with the illness of my mistress and my illness too. For although I had saved her life as my master had said, she was never really well again, and thus shortly afterward the squire had to move from Birtwick to a warmer climate. This meant that all the squire's horses had to be sold, and while the squire took great pains to find me a new home in which I could be happy, it didn't work out that way. Ginger and I pulled the carriage down to the railway station, and it was the saddest day of my life to see Miss Jessie and Miss Flora, tears in their eyes, board the train, and then to see the squire, carrying his wife in his arms, also get on board. We knew we should never see them again. My new home was Earl's Hall, a grand place in the country. The head groom was a man named Reuben Smith, and I must now say a few words about him, for it was his doing that led me into great misfortune. Reuben Smith was gentle and very clever in his management of horses, but he had one great fault, and that was the love of drink. He would go for weeks sober and diligent in his work, and then, for some reason, he would break out and have a bout with whiskey. One day he rode me into the town and went drinking in the taverns. When he returned to me, he was quite drunk and didn't notice that I had a loose nail in one of my front shoes. So off we went for home at a gallop, with Mr. Smith often giving me a sharp cut with his whip, although I was going at full speed. The roads were stony, and going over them at this pace, my shoe became loose and finally it came off. Reuben Smith noticed nothing, just kept forcing me to gallop over the large, sharp stones. My shoeless foot suffered terribly, and eventually I stumbled and fell with violence on both of my knees. Smith was flung off by my fall and lay senseless in the road. I soon recovered my feet and limped to the side of the road where I waited. Oh, how I listened for the sound of a horse, or wheels, or footsteps. It was past midnight when finally I heard the sound of horses' feet, and then the sound of men's voices. When they reached me, they discovered that Reuben Smith was dead, and one look at my knees and my foot showed them what had happened. As soon as my knees were sufficiently healed, I was turned into a small meadow for a month or two of rest. But one day my master and the new groom who had taken the unfortunate Reuben Smith's place came to examine me. My master was much annoyed.
"There's 300 pounds flung away," he said. "But what I care for most is that this horse of my old friend, who thought he would find a good home with me, is ruined. You'll have to sell him at the horse fair. I can't have knees like those in my stables."
The horse fair was held on the outskirts of London, and there certainly was plenty to see. Long strings of young horses out of the country, fresh from the marches, and droves of shaggy little Welsh ponies, no higher than Merrylegs, and hundreds of cart horses of all sorts, some of them with their long tails braided up and tied with scarlet cord, and a good many like myself, handsome and high-bred, but fallen into troubled days through some accident or blemish, unsoundness of wind, or some other complaint. In the milling throng of men and horses, there suddenly came the sound of music. I soon saw its source. It was 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, dressed in fancy clothes to which had been stitched hundreds of pearl buttons. They were the Pearlies, the famous street entertainers of London, come to brighten up the horse fair.
Years ago on London's docks, a freighter crashed amongst the rocks. Amid the waves and all the swirl were thousands of buttons made of pearls. A costermonger saw them there, and he decided they were meant to wear. Many others did the same, and that's how the Burleys got their name. Dressed in pearls from head to toe, see them dancing to and fro. Knees up, knees up, knees up high, gotta keep your knees up in the sky. Round and round the Burleys go, with their partners step and toe. Diddle, 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 lie, it's the Burleys holiday. Every year down Hampstead Way, they celebrate their holiday. For miles and miles they come around, from east and south of London town. Although they need to celebrate, they're also there to nominate a pearly king, a pearly queen, the likes of which you've never seen. Dressed in pearls from head to toe, see them dancing to and fro. Knees up, knees up, knees up high, gotta keep your knees up in the sky. Round and round the Burleys go, with their partners step and toe. Diddle, 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 lie, it's the Burleys holiday.
No doubt a horse fair is a very amusing place to those who have nothing to lose, but it was very troubling for me to be placed in such a lottery for my future life. Who was to know whether my buyer would be a kindly man or a cruel one? You could tell which kind by the way each man would appraise you. The first thing was to pull my mouth open, then to look at my eyes, then feel all the way down my legs and give me a hard feel of the skin and flesh, and then try my paces. What a difference there was in the way these things were done. Some did it in a rough, offhand way, as if one was only a piece of wood, while others would move their hands gently over one's body with a pat now and then, as much as to say, "By your leave." There was one man I thought, if he would buy me, I should be happy. He was rather a small man, but well-made, and quick in his motions. I knew in a moment by the way he handled me that he was used to horses. He spoke gently, and his gray eyes had a kindly, cheery look in them. He offered 23 pounds for me, but that was refused, and he walked away. Then came a very hard-looking, loud-voiced man, and he offered 23 pounds. The salesman began to get worried that he wouldn't get more and was about to sell me when the little gray-eyed man came back. I could not help reaching out my head toward him. He stroked my face kindly. "Well, well, old chap," he said, "I think we should suit each other. I'll give 24 for him."
"Say 25 and you shall have him,"
said the salesman. 24.10, said my friend.
"Done,"
said the salesman. And so I was sold to my new master, Jerry Barker, who was a London cabbie. Polly, his wife, was just as good a match as a man could have. She was a plump, trim, tidy little woman with smooth, dark hair, dark eyes, and a merry little mouth. The boy was nearly 12 years old, a tall, frank, good-tempered lad, and little Dorothy, Dolly they called her, was her mother over again at 8 years old. They were all wonderfully fond of each other. I never knew such a happy, merry family before or since. Come father and mother and sister and brother, come all of you, turn to and help one another. If you in the morning throw minutes away, you can't pick them up in the course of the day. You may hurry and scurry and flurry and worry, you've lost them forever, forever and aye. The first morning I spent with the Barkers, when I was well-groomed, Polly and Dolly came into the yard to see me and make friends. Harry had been helping his father since the early morning and had stated his opinion that I should turn out a regular brick. Polly brought me a slice of apple and Dolly a piece of bread and made as much of me as if I had been the Black Beauty of old. It was a great treat to be petted again and talked to in a gentle voice, and I let them see as well as I could that I wished to be friendly. Polly thought I was very handsome, and a great deal too good for a cab if it was not for my broken knees. I had always been a country horse, so life in the great city of London as a cab horse was very exciting for me. Jerry was as good a driver as I had ever known, and soon he and I understood each other as well as horse and man can do. It was a good thing because driving in the city is very difficult when the streets are full of traffic. There are carriages, omnibuses, carts, vans, trucks, cabs, and great wagons, some going one way, some another, some going slowly, others wanting to pass them, buses stopping short every few minutes to take up a passenger, obliging the horse that is following to pull up quickly. Then when a narrow opening appears, to dash for it. It was hard work, but with such a fine master, I didn't mind it. It was summer when I first had come to London, and Jerry and I had many hard-working but happy days together in the warm weather and in the pleasant days of the fall. But when winter came on, Jerry grew sickly and developed a terrible cough. Then a bad thing happened on the day that should be the happiest of the year, Christmas. In the evening, we had to take a gentleman and his beautiful lady to a party, and the gentleman asked Jerry to wait so that we could return them to their home. He said they would not stay long at the party. Even though it was raining and bitterly cold, Jerry agreed to wait. After what seemed hours to me, the wind came up and the rain changed to sharp, driving sleet. I felt half frozen as there was no shelter. Jerry finally came and pulled one of my claws a little more over my neck. Then he took a turn or two up and down, stamping his feet. Then he began to beat his arms, but that set him to coughing. So he opened the cab door and sat at the bottom and was a little sheltered. The house where the party was being held was brilliantly lit and looked inviting and warm inside. We could hear the music, which sounded all the sweeter to a weary cabman and his horse shivering in the cold. Finally, the gentleman and his lady came out, and with never a word of apology, asked to be driven home. The gentleman was angry at the waiting charge, but finally paid. But it was hard-earned money for Jerry, because by the time we got home, he could hardly speak, and his cough was so dreadful. Jerry was in his bed for 2 weeks and almost died. When he did recover, the doctor said he must give up his cab and move to the country. So it was another sad parting for me. Jerry, Polly, and the children came to bid me goodbye. Polly laid her hand on my mane, then put her face close to my neck and kissed me. "How I wish we could take you with us," she said. Dolly was crying and kissed me too. Jerry stroked me a great deal but said nothing, only he seemed very sad. And so I was led away to my new place. I was sold to a corn dealer whom Jerry knew, and with him he thought I should have good food and fair work. In the first he was quite right, and if my new master had always been present, I would have had no trouble. But he was gone a good deal, and the foreman he left in charge was a cruel man, always hurrying and driving everyone and overloading the horses. The overloading was particularly hard on me, as I was now an old horse, not at all the strong black beauty of my youth. One day I was loaded more than usual, and part of the road was steep uphill. I used all my strength, but I could not get on and was obliged continually to stop. This did not please the foreman at all, and he laid his whip on badly.
"Get on with you, lazy fellow," he said.
I struggled to keep on, goaded by constant chucks of the rein and the whip's sharp bite, when, in a single moment, I cannot tell how, my feet slipped from under me, and I fell heavily to the ground on my side. This seemed to make the foreman more furious, for he laid the whip on with a will, shouting, "Get up! Get up!" As I struggled to regain my feet, I heard a lady say, "Please, please, do not whip your horse any more." As I stood up, the ladies, for there were 2 of them, came over and began stroking my head. They were very angry at the foreman. "It's a great wickedness to treat an animal that way," they said. As I looked at the ladies, they seemed somehow familiar to me, and in a flash I realized that it was Miss Jessie and Miss Flora Gordon. As they continued petting me, Miss Jessie suddenly said, "White star on the forehead." Then Miss Flora said, "One white foot on the off side." Then Miss Jessie said, looking at the middle of my back, "As I am alive, there is that little patch of white hair that John Manley used to call Beauty's threepenny bit. It must be Black Beauty. Why, Beauty, Beauty, do you know us, Miss Jessie and Miss Flora?" Although they were grown women now, I did remember them and was certainly very happy to see them. They asked the foreman who owned me, and he told them. So together we all went back to the corn dealer's, and Miss Jessie and Miss Flora bought me from him, paying much more than I was worth, I am sure. So it was that I came back to my old home at Birtwick. I have now lived in this happy place a whole year since my return. Little Joe Green, now a grown man, is my groom, and he is both gentle and kind. My work is easy and pleasant, and I feel my strength and spirits all coming back again. I often stand under the apple trees in the orchard, as I used to, and imagine that my old friends are here with me, and I am happy and content.